unless this is green.
I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Carrie, would you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Cade,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kelly. He might be trying to join us. Commissioner Oakes,
Here.
Commissioner Ertley,
Here.
Commissioner Schreiber. He's trying to.
Okay. All right. And next, we'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do we have any public or employee comments?
I wasn't notified of any at this time.
Okay, no? All right. Next, we have the local 3438 report.
Can everyone hear me? Brian, you getting this? Okay, great. Hello, Kirk Norman, Local 3438. I'm the PAC chair. First, just a quick question. President Kuntz and I were wondering, is the meeting tomorrow open to the labor group as well, or is it just a workshop for admin and the commissioners?
Well, I thought it was a public meeting.
Okay.
It's open to the public.
Okay, yeah, we just didn't want to, show up uninvited. We wanted to be there and collaborate if possible.
No.
Okay, perfect. So, I don't know if my power just turned off here again. Brian, can you, are you?
You're good. It's
Okay.
Kirk?
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Kirk, I will say that we don't normally take comments at a retreat or a
Okay.
workshop.
Okay.
We're willing to listen or hear, but it's as asked, and it's mostly people who come are listening.
Perfect, we don't necessarily have an agenda, we just didn't know
Okay.
whether or not it was appropriate to
Okay,
even be there.
that's fine,
Okay.
thank you.
Perfect, thank you so much. Members of the commission, I've got a really poignant topic. This is really important. I'll try to get through as quickly as I can. There's a lot of charged emotional content here, so forgive me if I stumble a little bit, but this is very important to not only me and the labor group, but the entirety of North County's bargaining unit. That's why there are so many of them here today. I'm here asking for your help. As first responders, the citizens trust us to protect them, to keep them safe, to come when they call and protect them from harm. And today I'm here representing the members of 3438, asking you, the commission, to protect us. Some of you may know, but most do not, the psychological scars that first responders carry from bad calls. Whether it's the piercing scream of a mom whose child you couldn't save, the unrecognizable features of a car full of teenagers ejected during a motor vehicle collision, a family homeless in an instant after a fire guts their house, asking us where they're going next, or just the utter devastation of trying to save a life only to fail and be left to ride home in silence from a call with only your thoughts and remorse. Sorry. The trauma we suffer from our work is killing us. Nearly 50% of first responders meet the criteria for PTSD. Suicide rates among first responders are 30% higher than the general population. The toll taken by the calls we respond to has downstream effects in our personal lives as well. Missed holidays, sleep disorders, PTSD, and a multitude of other problems create high divorce rates and more stressful home lives. It doesn't have to be this way, though. Skilled, specialized peer support is designed to help us process the things we see at work and mitigate the impacts on our personal lives. Recently, North County Regional Fire Authority elected to discontinue peer support services for its employees, instead referring them to the Employee Assistance Program, or EAP, and all of us have seen some version of EAP before. While potentially beneficial to workers in a typical American corporate setting, EAP is woefully incapable of meeting the needs of our group. With crisis response teams comprised of members not trained to support first responders specifically, and a turnaround timeline in the matter of days for that crisis response team, 5 to 7 days usually, they cannot be there in time to support a member in their darkest hours. We are a 24/7 response group with specific, highly specialized needs due to that PTSD and due to that trauma, and we're now being asked to utilize a 9 to 5 standard support service. Again, we need, not want, we need specialized peer support to help us process the things we see at work and the resulting stresses that manifest in our lives. Prior to separation from Northwest Incident Support, Julie Boyer was the one that we called when we were in crisis. In 2023 alone, she performed over 176 peer support one-on-one sessions. That is her taking her time to talk to individuals. These included critical incident stress debriefings after traumatic calls, counseling at-risk individuals during crisis, supporting loved ones of first responders, and many other critical support tasks. Over the last 3 years, Julie has further supported your first responders by helping 8 members through advanced PTSI treatment programs. Much like alcohol and drug rehabilitation, there is PTSD rehabilitation now due to the staggering impacts that we're seeing manifesting in our responders. She's provided 60 counseling referrals for professional psychological care, and she's implemented the training and organization of our local peer support network. We have individual firefighters who are trained and led by Julie Boyer to provide that one-on-one peer support right after a call before we need more advanced care. But the most important number representing the work that Julie does with her team is this: 22. Julie's team has intervened on behalf of 22 individuals within this agency who were actively suicidal at the time of contact. That is 16% of the people who are currently employed by North County. That's 1 out of every 6 people in this room. Someone you know has contacted Julie Boyer when they were at the cusp of committing suicide. The impact of Julie and her team's work cannot be overstated. She has saved the lives of our coworkers and their families. When the public calls 911, we respond every time. No questions, no judgment, no conditions. We show up, we help, and we protect them. When we call and need help, we call Julie. She steps between our members and devastating hopelessness, protecting us from the kinds of horrors that only first responders can understand. Her trustworthiness, compassion, understanding, and skill are often the only viable lifeline to our members. I am asking, we, the Union 3438, your uniformed responders, are asking you to help us. Please provide better than the EAP. Please protect us by hiring Julie Boyer and Pacific Northwest Support Services for peer support and counseling. And I'm free to answer any questions you have about that. Thank you.
How many peer support personnel are in the group?
Internally, Commissioner Rose.
How many peer support
So I
members are
don't
within
know
the group?
how many Pacific Northwest Support Services hires or has employed, but I believe it's in excess of 10. Julie could more succinctly comment on all of that. I believe she's issued a proposal to the agency very recently to contract for services, but I can't speak on the pricing of that or what the coverage of her team. The only thing I know for certain she provides is the critical incident stress debriefing and the support services that we need to keep us safe.
Are there firefighters in the group that are trained in peer support?
Yes, sir. Yes. And the unfortunate portion of it, it would be nice if she could train them and let them go free and they can do that work. But the peer support that our firefighters provide is very much the very first line of defense, right? So let's say me and my crew go and we have a really traumatic call with the death of a child or something like that. We are trained to be able to talk to each other and begin that debrief process. But once we start getting into suicidal ideation, PTSD, any sort of depression or anxiety, it has to ramp up. And Julie was always that person that caught it. Julie and her team were the next level, and then they would mobilize people to definitive care at that point.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
am I being heard?
Yes, Holly, go ahead. Oh,
Okay, it's not really a question, I just want to reinforce what was said, is, yeah, they need support immediately. It's not the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type support that the insurance company can give us, and not there on weekends. They need support now. And so what he's sharing is very true. And the impression I have is the cost of this is pretty minimal in terms of everything that we put money into. So I would agree. This is, and I know you asked for a question and I'm making a comment, but it's this is really necessary for our firefighters.
okay. Thank you, Holly. We'll get used to that. I just want to say that I understand what you're saying, and I support what you're asking for.
Thank you.
I just need to know the cost and how to go about making it right. I didn't know this.
Of course, yeah, and we solicited Julie to approach
Okay.
the chief. We understand that there's a lot going on between Northwest Incident
Yeah.
Support and that whole dynamic, and we as the labor group don't want to be involved in the politics of it. We simply want to reiterate that with NWIS being unable to provide peer support, there's a very large and important gap that needs to be filled, and I don't want to see my people hurt because of that gap not being filled. And I do believe most people don't understand the shortcomings of EAP. It is just not a very robust program for first responders in general.
Okay, well, I appreciate hearing that, and hopefully we can talk to Randy and see budget-wise, and talk to the rest of the commissioners and see what, if we can't get something, data on this and figures and, how to make it happen.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Madam
Okay?
Chair.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I have from the labor group, unless Greg has anything. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did either of you have any comments on that or any thoughts?
I suggest we add a minimal session tomorrow, maybe a 15, 20-minute briefing to get up to speed on this, because I don't feel up to speed either on it.
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't know if it was enough time between tonight and tomorrow to get the information that we need. So,
not received a proposal.
okay. Oh, Rob?
I appreciate the interest in it, but I don't want to rush something on like a 24-hour basis that we may or may not have even received yet. Trying to put it on the agenda in a couple of weeks in the normal course of our next meeting, sure, I got no issue with that. But I just don't want to try to attempt to do something, tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just don't want to run it that fast.
Greg?
Yeah, I do agree, but I also agree with Commissioner Caden that I think there is some value in having just some initial talks tomorrow
Yeah.
at the retreat, whether it's 10 or 15 minutes, but I'd like to know a little bit more too.
If there's time to talk about it tomorrow, I'm not against that. I'm just saying I don't want to raise expectations that we're supposed to talk and take action
We do not ever
tomorrow.
take action at a retreat.
Yeah, I just want that
Okay.
clear to everybody who's listening. That's
No,
that's
it's
the
a
important point
discussion
here.
only.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll try to have a brief discussion with the information we have, and then we'll know what further information we need to get, and
Exactly.
we'll move on it as soon as possible. Okay? Anything else from anybody? Okay, may I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda?
Thank you, Rick. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next, we have the need for an approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, Greg, move. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And the way the consent agenda is presented, it has the reports on there. But usually we don't vote on specifically. I'm just a little not sure about having it in both places.
Well,
We're voting on a consent agenda that we're not going to discuss it. We're just voting on it because it's on the consent agenda. But then we're discussing it. So I just think it needs to be a separate item and not on the consent agenda.
well, I like it the way it is because it's clear that it's a presentation.
Yes, but when you think about what a consent agenda is, it's something that you're consenting to without discussing it. You already, so it's probably small stuff, but it's just, for me, it was a little confusing, but whatever we want to do and whatever's easiest, it will be fine.
Well, I liked it. This is less confusing than the last meeting. And I'm just saying that this was clear to me. It's like, okay, we're accepting the consent agenda,
And then
which
we're gonna
includes the
talk about-
reports. That's fine. But we're going to
Okay.
actually have a verbal presentation
The same
on those
night.
two reports.
Okay.
Yeah. that's-
Okay.
So I don't find that confusing.
Okay, so the motion is carried, and we'll move on to the quarterly division presentation. Is,
We're gonna hear from, I think think Captain Rice.
Is he-
first, if he's here.
Okay. Is he hiding?
Behind the screen.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
You're gonna pull up
Wait.
your,
Is the mic hot?
Yeah, the green's on you. When the green's on, it doesn't really bite, it's just.
Oh. I'm trying some new technology, so we'll see how it works for Carrie.
So are we. So we're seeing how it works for Terry also.
thank you, Sean, for your patience.
No
Coming
problem.
up here.
Good. Perfect. Good afternoon, members of the commission. Thank you for having me here to give a quarterly report on the stuff that I'm currently working on, which is the Snohomish County Training Consortium and the Snohomish County Fire Training Academy. So some of you as either new members or may not be educated on North County's role in the Snohomish County Training Consortium. Just like to give you kind of a backstory and a history of that, as well as some statistics and how they line up, particularly with our site, our new training site, and that we are hosting both of those organizations. So I am currently a battalion chief for North County, well, temporarily promoted to battalion chief for North County. I'm in that position due to the fact that I hold the chair of the consortium position, which requires that I be a chief officer. So I'm normally a captain paramedic for North County, and so I will be returning back to those duties, when my term is up. So I'm serving a term for the Snohomish County Training Consortium. So if you can go to the next, I don't know. I was curious how this is not a slideshow. This is called a infograph. So I didn't know how this would pop up. But so Snohomish County Fire Training Academy, which is really the only thing that the Snohomish County Training Consortium provides at this moment is a regional academy. The consortium was designed to be at some point a all-encompassing training division for the entire county, and we have made some steps towards it, some steps back due to COVID, and we are continuing to strive to make that a reality. But as of right now, the only thing that the consortium handles is the training academy. So in 2017, the Snohomish County Training Consortium was founded. It was founded by four hosts, the four founding agencies, which was the City of Everett Fire Department, Marysville Fire Department, at the time Snow 7, Snohomish District Fire District 7, and South County Fire, actually Fire District 1 at the time. And so those four got together mainly due to the fact that all of the hiring in our region would go to the State Academy in North Bend. And the problem with that and the rate that Snohomish County was hiring is that we couldn't get enough students in at North Bend. So we decided at that time in 2017 to start our own academy, which was a huge undertaking. I had the opportunity to help with the curriculum development of that program, and we're still running it today. So our very first class was in 2018. And at that time, we only had about 15 to 20 students. We held 1 to maybe 2 academies a year, and that met our need. But for that first couple classes, but immediately our hiring, due to the retirement rate in the county, as well as the growth of the county, we outgrew that extremely fast. And so we got to the point where we're running 4 academies a year on 2 different campuses. And so during COVID, also, we had to pivot, and we were running multiple campuses, multiple sites, and also an influx of hiring while we weren't supposed to be around each other. So we had to be extremely creative, and actually even had our academy at an old abandoned commercial building in Kmart, and a whole complex, so we could all be spread out enough. And so
what that taught us is the fact that we can have a very high capacity for volume to keep up with the rate of our hiring. And so we were able to adopt a multi-campus approach. And so in 2021, right after kind of the first initial part of COVID, we started operating on 2 campuses, running 2 academies at the exact same time on a 2-week staggered system. And so that worked for a while, and then we quickly outgrew that system. And so that brought us to 2023 when we moved the academy up to North County's training site. And now what we're able to do is accommodate 1 large class 2 times a year. And so our academies are pumping out recruits at a rate of 50 to 60 at a time. And so that is a pretty big undertaking. It's kind of in the realm of metropolitan fire departments like Seattle, LA, San Francisco, those kinds of things. So we are extremely proud and happy to be at North County because it's allowed us to be able to keep up with the hiring of Snohomish County. So next slide, please. So since we've moved from the academy to North County, we've graduated 77 recruits. This is kind of the breakdown of each of the departments. And so this slide kind of just represents what the consortium is now. So the consortium is now represented by six agencies. Everett Fire Department, still Marysville Fire District, Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue, Snohomish Fire District 4, North County, and South County. And so we've also, you can see on this slide, we do take students from outside the area. And so this last class, we had some from Camano as well. And the next class, starting in the fall, we are looking at about 60 recruits, and about 10 or so are coming from outside of our county. So we are not only providing a service for North County, for the county, but also for the region. Next slide, please. So a little bit about how the consortium works. For those who may not know how it works, you're probably wondering why we have a staff member there. Basically, the academy is made up of 4 staff members. They come from various departments in the consortium on a rotational basis. So I've been serving as a consortium chair I will be finishing up a 2-year term at the end of the year, and it will rotate to another department to fill that role. So currently I'm in that role, and then I have 3 training officers that I work alongside, one from the Everett Fire Department, one from the South County, and one from Snohomish Regional. So if you look at this particular slide here, you can kind of see how our organizational chart is made up. I report at the very top to the admin board, which is interesting. It is 6 fire chiefs from all 6 different agencies, as well as I answer to the consortium advisory board, which is 12 chiefs, training and operations from every department in the consortium. So I have 18 bosses, which is very interesting and fun and challenging. Then I am the consortium chair, like I said, and 3 training officers underneath me. And then we supervise overall. We are not instructors. We are not. We don't really even handle curriculum. What we do is just administrate and supervise all the recruits, all of our company officers, which I'll get to in a second, and all of our instructors. So the academy has a cadre of instructors of around 80 people to make our academy function. So you can imagine all the moving parts there with time off, duty, mandatory overtime, so on and so forth. And then as our recruits come from each department on a 6-to-1 ratio, every 6 recruits our department sends, they are required to send a company officer, which is somebody who is either on a promotional list for a captain or a lieutenant, or somebody who's been recently promoted to that position, and that is where they receive their initial company officer and leadership training. And so that is another aspect of the academy that I in particular supervise. If you can go to the next slide, Carrie. This next slide is just some random facts, just to kind of show you what we've been working on. Since 2017, we've had the Snohomish County Training Academy's had over 500 students. That is more than any department in this county has hired or employed. We have had 18 classes. I'm sorry, 6 departments. We've had 4 different sites. Our academy is 13 weeks. We cover 20 plus disciplines. over a 550-hour program. My favorite and thing I'm most proud of is that number there, 250 burns. Our academy, each cycle, one academy, it accounts 250 burns, 250 live fire scenarios that our recruits see, which is more than any program in the United States that I'm aware of. And so we pride ourselves on our whole process, which is built off an idea called RPDM, which stands for Recognition Prime Decision Making. And what that means is that under stress, when you see something, your brain automatically, without you knowing, computes all the situations that you've ever experienced and then allows you to react to that. And so we provide, in our opinion, we provide the most realistic training that is out there so our students can react appropriately under real conditions. We've had over 100 instructors and just, see if that's it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Perfect. Nope, you're good. I don't want to keep talking anyways. And then this last slide is specifically about just kind of update you guys. I don't know what kind of update you get about the training center, but in particularly, one of my roles is to supervise outside contracts. Our largest outside contract is the academy, so it kind of makes sense for that. But I also coordinate or assist in coordinating all the site rentals for different various departments that use our site, whether for live fire training or other training evolutions. So these are just some kind of random stats about our site usage. So this slide is basically meant to illustrate all the moving parts and logistics that go into running the training center. So we have used almost 4,000 sheets of OSB plywood for our live fire training, upwards of 1,000 pallets. I call myself the most expensive pallet collector that I know of. I spend, like today, Wednesdays are my pallet days. I go get pallets. But you can see how many pallets it takes and how many, how much consumables it takes for the undertaking of running this site. And if you see that far statistic on the left, site rentals, we've really only had about less than 20, and you can see how much consumables and logistics it takes to run the site. And so we've conducted about 750 burns so far. So that's kind of where we're at. And I think that was the last of it, and I'd be willing to field any questions that you might have. Sorry, I wanted to talk as fast as possible.
Any
so
questions from anyone? Comments? Well, thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Okay, and next we have Matt Hickman with the CARES program.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. Thanks for having me. I went old school. I have a PowerPoint presentation, not an infographic here, but I'll have BC Rice show me how to do a word map here in the future. My name is Matt. I'm the community resource paramedic. A lot of you guys have met me before, but for those of you who have not, been here for about 2 years. And I think it's worth stepping back a little bit. We have some new commissioners here, and I realized that earlier in the year we actually went through a rebranding process from the original name of our program, which is a CRP program, to what you'll now see is CARES, which is Community Assistance, Referral, and Education Services. And so the idea behind this rebranding is, number one, it would align us with state and federal funding opportunities. We also thought it was a little bit more accessible of a term for the community as well. CARES is kind of a feel-good term. As far as the day-to-day work of our CRP program, nothing has changed. So the program is very similar in its structure. The other thing is I'm going to do a little bit of a catch-up session with you guys today, so kind of bring you up to speed for the full year as opposed to the quarter one report. Very similar to what Chief Kraske and Chief Kuntz did earlier this year. So next slide, please. So as I said, I'm Matt. I'm your community resource paramedic. I'm hoping Christina is here. Okay. She's going to hate that I'm doing this, putting her on the spot here, but I really would be remiss if I didn't say that she is the backbone and does a lot of on-scene work for our program. I think that our firefighters and paramedics obviously get a lot of the credibility that they should, doing the flashy lights and sirens kind of stuff. Christina is doing work that is extremely important for our program, and we work hand in hand on every client that we see. And so I wanted to take a moment to thank you, first of all. And then also, she's going to hate this as well, I'd like to introduce you to our summer intern, Kelly Carpenter. She's coming from Western Washington University and will be part of our team this summer. So we're really excited to have her on board, and you guys are actually going to hear from her in August. She will do a presentation just like this, which she is very much looking forward to. She's anyone in this room who responds with me knows that we've seen a very consistent trend regionally, nationally, and then also here at North County as well, of calls that are increasing in low acuity, non-emergent nature. So it's very, very common for us to go out on calls where we kind of scratch our heads and go, why is emergency medical services here? And one of the really common themes with these calls is they often have more appropriate solutions than 911 and certainly transport to the hospital. We need to recognize that the reason for this is not all on the patient. There are healthcare literacy issues, but we also work in a very overburdened and frankly broken healthcare system, and so our patients and clients actually do have very real barriers in accessing resources and services. And so what we aim to do is try to connect them to those services. Next slide. The downstream effects of these repeated calls for chronic conditions, low acuity events is, first of all, the firefighters and paramedics that you hire to respond to emergencies are unable to respond to those true emergencies. When they're doing a blood pressure check or seeing someone for the 9th time regarding their gout and a fire drops, they're not able to respond to it. Our job in the CARES program that we take very seriously is to intervene at that point and do some back-end care coordination work to keep those calls from happening in the first place. The other downstream effect is unprecedented wall times at the hospital. You guys may have heard this, but a wall time means when an ambulance transports to the hospital and does not have an open bed to transfer that patient to. Help me out here, someone in the audience. What's the longest wall time we've seen this year?
6.5 hours.
We're at 6.5 hours. So this again, I'll let everything time.
You said wall time and everything's set off.
Yeah, exactly. So this again has a number of different factors, and it's something that we deal with on the EMS division side. But again, we try to do this background work to hopefully have that downstream effect of reducing those wall times as well. And quite frankly, emergency departments are equipped to handle emergencies. So when that person goes to the emergency department for something not appropriate for it, they are sent home without the problem being addressed, and the cycle continues again. So enter the CARES program. So our CARES program is one of many what are called mobile integrated health programs in the region and the country. If you see to the left of the screen there, you'll see we're not alone in the region. We have lots of different variants of mobile integrated health. But generally, you can think anytime the fire department does something outside of their customary or traditional response roles, that's mobile integrated health. You've probably read articles about social workers in the field and really a lot of different ways to structure it. The way we structure it was based on a community needs assessment initially when I came through, finding that we actually had a lot of resources in our area. We just didn't have a lot of connection to our resources. And so we'll talk about care coordination here coming up. We have two main goals. Number one, we want to work with the client to find sustainable solutions that are not emergency medical services and teach them at the same time, so walk with them. And then the other main goal is something I've described already, which is to reduce that burden of low acuity calls on our fire department. The beautiful thing is that these two goals are congruent with each other. They run hand in hand, and when we do one, we accomplish the other. A question that I get frequently is why the fire department should engage in this work in the first place. Well, first of all, I think it's the right thing to do. I think that the public expects us to do right by them, and this is a way that we can help. It is a little bit off the cuff, and when we think fire department, we don't necessarily think this. But I absolutely, after spending a couple years in this role, do believe in mobile integrated health and believe it works. We saw a lot of the same benefit of this type of work with fire prevention in the 80s and 90s. So the idea of preventing something from happening before it even starts, well, mobile integrated healthcare has the exact same underlying theme. If we intervene in a time when it's not crisis, then we can prevent that call from happening in the first place. It's, one way I think about it is like a lot of the time our work doesn't get recognized because that doesn't happen. The pager doesn't go off when we do that work. And then the other thing is a lot of people are very healthcare averse. And so we have a unique lens we have a unique ability to see individuals that normally would never have any other contact with the healthcare community. So let's talk a little bit about our referral process. So how do the nuts and bolts of our program work? Well, first of all the firefighters you see in this room know how to refer to us. So thanks to Will King, we have a new shiny referral process this year using a QR code, which means that when crews encounter somebody that they think could use CARES intervention, simply by scanning a QR code on their tablet, they're able to fill out that form on the scene of the call and send their report to us in real time. It's really seamless and it works very well. The other thing that we do is recognizing our crews aren't going to catch every single referral that we should. So the bedrock of our program is based on something called a high system utilizer. High system utilizer is exactly what it sounds like. It means someone that's calling 911 a lot. What does a lot mean? Well, it means 2 times in 24 hours, 3 times in a week, or 5 times in 90 days. Every single person, every single patient in North County service area that meets that criteria gets contacted by the CARES program. So we will data mine their phone number on the back end, we'll call them up and essentially explain the program to them and let them know kind of how we work. Oftentimes, it's not, hey, why are you calling me? It's, oh my gosh, thank you. Please come help. It doesn't happen that way every time. Sometimes we get some colorful language and we leave those people alone. But we do contact all those people. We find it very effective. I would say about 70% of the time or so, our crews catch our high system utilizers before we get to them. However, we do kind of do that sweep on the back end to make sure that we're not missing anyone. Care coordination, as I said, is sort of the foundation of how we do our work. We do not provide a lot of direct services, meaning we do not go and do wound care changing. We do not go and do social work intervention. What we do is sit and walk with a client and put the puzzle pieces of their healthcare ecosystem together with them. The other thing is that while we do this, we're always kind of thinking of educating and empowering the client to manage their own healthcare needs. I hate to say this, but it's sort of like the teaching a man to fish versus, giving the fish kind of thing. Exactly the same thing. So our goal here, of course, would be to educate and empower someone and hopefully when something comes up down the pipeline, they're going to be able to navigate that situation a little bit better. So you recognize that? This is a staged photo. This is Carrie's parents gracefully allowed us to come and take photos. So thought I'd get a giggle out of you. So the services that we provide, the CARES team, so how do we do our care coordination work? One of the main things that we do is what's called hospital discharge follow-up. So I explained that people go to the hospital over and over again for similar complaints. Well, when anyone leaves the hospital, they come home with paper. And what that is their discharge instructions. We actually use that as a blueprint to kind of take the next steps with them. What we've realized is that although hospital discharge instructions are very clear, sometimes doing the tasks on those are not. So you can imagine someone calling their primary care physician to get in and then finding that there's a 2-month wait. Well, they have a very real emergency that they went to the emergency department for, and so we can sometimes grease the wheels of the healthcare system to get them in. Medical transportation is also a huge barrier for a lot of our clients. We provide medical transportation and facilitating it. We will also load the patient up and put them in our vehicle and take them to doctor's appointments. There are 2 huge things that this helps us with. Number one, when we attend a doctor's appointment with someone, we reduce that breakdown of communication between the patient and us. So when we can act as a liaison or almost like an interpreter for a lot of medical speak, Anyone been to the doctor recently and had them kind of looking at their computer the whole time? Well, we speak that language a little bit. And so although the patient can leave feeling overwhelmed, we can go home and spend that time with that patient to walk through. And it really is quite effective. I'll go through these next ones kind of quickly here. We also manage medications and educate on medical conditions, insurance benefits as well. We'll go next slide. We do in-home fall prevention assessments, again, with the idea of preventing a fall from occurring in the first place. And then we also offer connection to substance use and mental health treatment as well. Again, it's very important to note that we're not social workers or mental health professionals, so we have to say that a lot. Although we sort of bleed into that work a little bit, we're very careful to stay within our own lane. All right, we'll go next slide. So a couple of quick case studies here, and this should kind of bring together what care coordination looks like. These are recent case studies from the last couple of months. One of them shows what a long-form, comprehensive client looks like that we will have to spend hours and hours and hours with. And then one of them shows you also how care coordination and the CARES program can do their work very quickly, and sometimes the solution is very simple. So this first gentleman we'll call Andy. He's a 70-year-old male. And Andy and his wife recently relocated from out of state. Unfortunately, the timing didn't work out quite well, and they decided to move right about the time he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and very mild dementia as well. One of the things that really saved us in this is that Andy did receive a plan of care from his former physician. We looked at it from the other state, and he had a whole bundle of medications. He just didn't know how to take them. The result of this was 4 911 calls in a 48-hour period for complications from diabetes. So we had 3 low blood sugar events and 1 very high blood sugar event. When we look at that, we see someone who has no clue what their insulin regimen is, and he absolutely did not. He did not know how to do it. So Christina and I, using kind of our 2 different skill sets, had a 2-pronged approach to this. While I worked with Andy to basically spend 1 to 2 hour sessions walking through exactly how to take his Tresiba and exactly how to take his insulin, she coordinated several primary care appointments and specialty care appointments, including with an endocrinologist, and attended those with client and wife. So this was a comprehensive setup. We also, recognizing that this was kind of a new onset diagnosis for him, hooked him up with home health. So we connected and referred to home health, and then also the Alzheimer's Association. After those first 4 911 calls, these interventions took about 8 to 10 hours for us. We had no further 911 calls for this patient. Go to the next slide. And this next one we'll call Judy. This is an example of how sometimes the simplest intervention can have significant downstream effects for our firefighters and paramedics. We have a 92-year-old female resident of adult family home. We had 5 911 calls in a week for high blood sugar. EMS crews would show up and they would see this individual, and she would want to chat with them and be very, very happy they were there, but also be like, why are you here? The reason is because the medical personnel at this facility had a standing order from their physician to call 911 anytime the blood sugar went above 400. Well, Judy liked to sneak down to the candy jar at the front desk. We learned this later, so that was kind of part of one of our interventions, is stealing candy from old ladies, and take her blood sugar up. But she was completely asymptomatic and did not have any complaints whatsoever. So we realized this, and we'll go to the next slide here, and realized that this was just a physician that we needed to have a conversation with and say, look, 400, yes, is concerning for some people, but a little bit of a look into our world here. A lot of people walk around with blood sugar of 400 and are just fine, and she was in that case. It took us 5 calls over the course of 10 days to finally get a hold of this primary care doctor for a total of 2.5 hours on the phone to get that order changed to a higher threshold, and we had no further 911 calls after. This was after family tried. This was after a bunch of people tried and weren't able to get through. This is an example of the CARES program spending this time on the back end and saving, what could have been multiple more calls for our fire engines and our paramedic units and aid cars going out on. A little bit of the numbers that we have right now. In 2024, we've had 89 referrals. We are currently working, 16 active clients now. We discharged 2 today. And we still sit at a 42% reduction in 911 calls for high system utilizers. So I explained to you what a high system utilizer was. The way that number is created is we track calls 60 days before day of enrollment in the CARES program and 60 days after, and we also clean that number up a little bit for move-aways and deaths as well. And so we tend to sit around 35 to 40% or so with this number, and that's been consistent over the last couple of years. So we continue to see great efficacy with this program and are very proud of it. And yeah, the only other thing I have for you is a couple of things that we've done this year that we're also very proud to kind of talk about. And these are things that sort of support the CARES mission. The CARES kits have been placed on all transport ambulances in our district. And this is just a bunch of consumable items that support. It goes hand in hand with our Narcan Leave Behind program, but we have COVID tests that we can give out, night lights for fall prevention efforts if we're not there, and then also some literature as well. The other thing that I'm very, very proud to say is that our Narcan Leave Behind program is humming along very well. The next time you see me when I do my Q2 report, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how we are attacking as a department the opioid crisis. But one of our first steps with that was getting our Narcan Leave Behind program. So on every ambulance, when our firefighters and paramedics go out on an opioid overdose, they're able to leave someone with Narcan, literature, and support before they leave so they know what's going on. And then we also talked about our streamlined referral process. So that is a quick overview of the CARES program. I would love to answer any questions you guys have.
John?
Just real quick, I need to take the opportunity to give Matt huge kudos. I'm pretty sure he's going to talk about it as outcomes in your second quarter. I received an email from Dr. K, our county medical doctor for the entire county. And we were part of a pilot program, and I hate this, absolutely despise this word. What is it called? Buprenorphine?
You nailed it, buprenorphine, yeah.
Matt started out with this program, and I received this, and she said it is truly an outlier in changing the face of opioid outcomes. So, Matt, do you have anything to share on a short?
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot take, actually, I can only take partial credit for that. Dr. Corsa, our medical program director, and he's kind of new in the last year here. This was his pilot program, brought me in on it, and again, in Q2, I look forward to kind of giving you an overview of our first few clients that we've interacted with, and we'll really delve into our core program. So the program is called Coordinated Opioid or Overdose Response by EMS, and it's a pilot program based out of North County that's kind of permeated into some other area departments now. So yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, very.
Nicely done, Matt.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did you have a question, Rob?
It was not a question so much. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation. This just underscores to me that we've got to build in more into our operations, the public relations angle of it, to get the story out. I mean, look at the other day, the announcement, the Everett Herald, not that it's a great paper, but it cut half its news staff the other day. Half, 50%, not 5, but 50. Anyway, the press is out there in different forms, and not just Facebook and stuff, but this kind of information has to be constantly fed to the public so that our citizens and voters know what they're getting for their money, and what is happening when 911 is dialed. And in many cases, like you said, you could take a preventive or mitigation effort, and reduce those calls, but still improve the health of the community. So thank you. I'm just saying this has to be hard baked into our operations to get the story out.
That is completely understood, and rest assured, anytime I have the opportunity to hear myself talk in front of some news outlets, I take it. So I will continue to spread as much of this as I can. So.
Not just newspapers and radios, but of course the Seattle news stations. There's about 4 of them, and you ought to have it on speed dial what they're news editors' numbers are on every one of those stations. 4, 5, 7, and 13, and be able to call them.
Mm-hmm.
They could reject a story, but you're fishing. You cast the line, and
Okay.
You will get some bites.
Absolutely. I have not done that yet, but I will reach out to maybe starting local first, some news outlets, see if we get any bites, and tell them all about the CARES program, because I think you're right. It's very
Well, you notice that all of the main Seattle stations have permanently assigned Snohomish County reporters.
Mhm.
Start with them. So anyway,
Yeah.
thank you.
absolutely. I can do that.
Thank you, Rob. And I wanted to thank you too, because having these reports like this is very valuable to us, talking to the community. Then we have the paperwork to refer back to. So thank you. It makes me feel more confident talking to people and explaining all the wonderful things that you do.
Yeah, and if you ever have a need to really delve into the data, I guarantee it would put you to sleep very quickly. But we do keep internal metrics as well.
Okay.
So we have all of our caseload for the past 2 years, outcomes, and all the pathways that we've completed with those clients. So if that ever interests you guys or you need it for something, we can furnish that.
Thank you. I think this was perfect, though.
All right.
Good information.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you again. Okay. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We don't have any unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. And we have our May financial report from Randy. There you go.
Thank you, Commissioners. As Carrie pulls that up here, we'll review where we're at through May. I think that's the last page. So might need to go back. There we go. This should have been available to you in your packet as well. If we go to the next screen, you'll see, well, the next one, that's just the text. Our cash investments, you see the 3-year history there. And we held pretty much the same from April to May, 14 point something, small letters, numbers. That was due to the fact that some people pay their property tax late, so some of the first half payments trickled in May. They didn't all come in April, so. Oh, okay. Yep. So we actually increased. We had 14.2 million end of April, and end of May we had 14.6. So we even went up even with all our expenditures and payroll. So that's good. And then the next screen you can see graphically, we're at a high point, the highest we've ever been since I've been around anyway, and I'm sure it wasn't bigger back then. So now that will obviously start decreasing as we do our twice a year cycle where we spend down, and then come fall with the second half property taxes, we'll refill our coffers a bit so we can continue operations. We're 5 out of 12 months through the year, 5/12, which is about 42%. So if you look at the top half, the revenues, you can see there we're over our property taxes. Some people pay 100% right up front, so that's why we're at 53%. Everything else, the other taxes, we get some miscellaneous timber taxes and whatnot, and excise, and those have all been coming in much higher than we expected, so that's a good number. We did get some COVID grant funds we weren't counting on, so that's why we're at 7,620% of grants and reimbursements. Fees and charges were right on track, so no surprises there. And other revenues were doing fine too. So we're at 52% after 5 months, so that's good for the revenues. On the bottom half, we can see the expenses. As I said, we should be around 42%. So departmentally, you'll see a few of them are a little bit higher. Like legislature, we've had a lot of activity and retreats and board meetings and whatnot. So you guys are a little bit over there, but it all balances out throughout the year. The most important thing is the total current expenses. We're at 37%, so we're under that 42% target. So that's all good. The next screen you'll see our GMT and transport numbers. Transport you'll see is not green. We're slightly under. That number is. We're about 31,000 behind at this stage. We should be getting our true up, which will make us all well in the GMT area of revenues. We have not received that yet from HCA, but we should be seeing that. So 30,000 behind is not too big a figure for GMT. We've dropped down to just regular transport figures. You'll see we're doing quite well there. We're about 467,000 over anticipated at this stage of the year. So that's all good. Then we'll go to the next page, which just shows our wages and overtime projections per the budget. And you can see we continue on the top one, wages only. We're under the dotted line. The blue is their actuals. And so at this point, if the trends continued, we would end the year under budget by perhaps as much as 874,000. The bottom scale, you can see our overtime projections, and as opposed to past years where we've always been over, this year so far we're doing really good. Staff's doing a great job managing overtime and backfilling, and we've hired additional bodies as well, which obviously helps in that situation. We're coming into the summer months, so obviously that's when a lot of employees are going to start taking vacation, so we may experience some more overtime, plus people go out on wildland duty, wildfires, so this number will probably eat into that amount that we're under right now, but still very good trend so far this year. So if you go to the last page and see those two numbers combined, if these trends continue throughout the end of the year, we could be as much as $1 million ahead of schedule per our budget. So we're also working on finishing up the audit. That's been going on for about 6 months. We're low priority in the auditor's eyes, special purpose districts. The county's the number one, then cities, and then the school districts, which they had to finish by the end of May. So they put us on hold for a month or two. But we're back meeting every week now and trying to get this wrapped up. So that'll be good to get that out of the way. And then
just one point on the wage.
Yeah.
The wage part is we budgeted for 4 years of hiring, and so we didn't hire right away. So that will set the trend line wrong. But now that we've hired to full capacity, it shouldn't be as off as that.
Yeah. Anytime an employee leaves and it takes a month or two to refill their position or backfill, you'll have some savings. So that factors into it as well. So good point, Chief. Thank you. Other things we're working on, we're trying to get out since we kind of run the consortium financially, we're trying to get out the true-up billing for the last academy that was held at our facility. So we're almost done with that. And then not too far down the road here in the next couple months, we'll be starting the 2025 budget process. So, and then for this next month's report, obviously through June will be 6 months, so we'll be halfway through the year. So I'll spend a little more time going through the numbers in detail. We're going to cover the academy figures that Rob's requested, so we'll have that to present as well. But at that point, once we kind of see where we're at mid-year, we can start making some other strategic decisions on moving ahead with some of the capital items that we projected. We always try to put those off till the second half of the year just to make sure we're on solid financial ground before we commit to big purchases. So I think that's all I had to share tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there were any.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Okay, the next item is our chief's report.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll start off with the most recent. We had a walk-in earlier this afternoon that I thought was, again, very appropriate to share right now. Firefighter paramedic Alan Combs and EMT Chase Morgan and Alan Combs and crew. I don't know who their crew was. The gentleman just left. He was driving across from Camino going to the hospital, and he had an issue, and Alan Combs and Chase Morgan were there. It actually was an incident that was reviewed in run review because it was of significant incidents, but they just came in and just were so pleased at their level of care. The gentleman was hospitalized for 4 or 5 days afterwards, and just the professionalism that they provided in his serious time. So great job to the crews coming on tomorrow. You'll probably have visitors tomorrow, Alan Combs and crew. But they think they had a little bit of wall time in the hospital, and they shared that there was no way that Alan was going to leave the side of that patient until he made sure that the staff was adequately informed of what they had found. So super proud of them, and I thought it's just a really good thing to share with you guys. Our EMS staff does a great job. Matt Coons has made significant progress on Station 96, but it will not be ready to open on July 1st. We anticipate a mid-July date as a new target, and we'll try to meet that goal. I participated in 2 Washington State JATC strategic planning sessions this last 2 weeks to help push the priorities for the next 5-year period with that group forward for professionalizing and for professional firefighters. We met with the Commissioners' Compensation Committee to discuss reorganization of the administrative section and realignment of job descriptions, and we'll present that to you guys tomorrow, or Allison will present that to you tomorrow at the Commissioners' Retreat. Carrie's going to be spending a couple of days locked in a Station 46 office, where she can have some uninterrupted time. Staff has met and discussed the process for replacing the assistant chief and MSA moving forward. We anticipate that it won't be filled until September 1st, so I think Allison is working on a potential MOU with the local to temporarily put it out to the crews to fill the position. It'll give some opportunity for people to have a temporary appointment to a new position, and maybe encourage them to want to step up to the plate for that. I met with the Sims group to discuss moving forward with the execution of the August 1st deadline that we have coming up here to stop service with Fire District 21 for advanced life support service. And Eric Quinn and I both have met and talked through several issues several times to discuss and share documentation for the next steps with Fire District 21. He'll file a motion for the courts to confirm our process. And then I reached out and I've worked with Department of Health to confirm we're communicating our next steps with the process with Fire District 21. And Teresa is helping me to prepare the new application for Department of Health, identifying our service area after that change. We conducted a internal JATC meeting with the labor and management groups as a normal process, quarterly process. And let's see, we've had multiple negotiation sessions with the local, moving that process forward. And I just received the official communication that there is a burn ban starting July 1st for 60 to 90 days, and they'll reassess it as we go through the summer months with the low water this year and drier fuel moisture levels. So I think our crews were out. I saw them out drilling in the front yard today doing wildland training. So I think we're all prepared. With that, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Our next item is a board discussion, commissioner comments. Does anyone have any comments or remarks of any kind? Okay. Anything for the good of the order? Greg? No?
I'm just getting ready.
You're just getting ready? If there's, go ahead, Rob.
No, I'm leaving next Monday for a Disney cruise to Alaska with my wife and grandson, so
Fun.
it's all good.
Okay.
Out of Vancouver.
Oh. Okay, with that, can I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rob. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.